"We're cutting your job because of changes we're making," Sarah said, not even looking up from her tablet. 20 years at West Coast Industries. And this was my goodbye. A plain room with a guard waiting outside. I'm Robert Davis, 60 years old, the head accountant at a place that used to build solid factory gear before the money guys took over. For almost 2 decades, I made sure the books were spotless, every number exactly right. "We need your building pass and parking sticker," Tom added, sliding a box across the table. "The guard will go with you to get your personal things." I just nodded once. Didn't argue, didn't beg. I just watched Sarah's perfect nails tap on the glass table. "Anything you want to say, Robert?" She sounded like she wanted me to cry or get angry, something to make her feel better about letting me go. "No. Thanks for the chance to work here." I got up, straightened my tie, and grabbed my old leather briefcase, the one my wife gave me 15 years ago before she passed away from sickness, before I buried myself in work to escape the quiet of our empty home. "Our HR department will contact you about your retirement money." Tom really stressed the word, retirement. We both knew I was 5 years away from getting my full benefits. The security guard, Mike, looked uncomfortable walking behind me to my office. "Sorry about this, Mr. Davis," he whispered as I carefully wrapped the photo of my wife in tissue paper. "Not your fault, Mike." I put my building pass on the desk but kept the leather briefcase close. Inside was a small USB drive with 3 years of careful records. Every payment to a seller that looked odd, every money transfer that seemed suspicious, every checkup they suddenly canceled. Sarah and Tom thought they were just cleaning house, getting rid of the older accountant who asked too many questions about the new fees for outside help showing up in department budgets. What they didn't know, I'd been keeping track of everything since the day Sarah lost those papers that proved the sellers were real, and since Tom started getting rid of anyone who questioned the new rules about what the bosses could spend. I walked through the main lobby, past people I worked with who suddenly found their shoes very interesting. 20 years of being loyal ended with a cardboard box and people looking away. Only when I got to my car did I let myself have a small, tight smile. They thought I was leaving with nothing. I was leaving with everything they didn't want anyone to find out about. I wasn't always a suspicious person. The first 15 years at West Coast were great. I joined when the company was still owned by the founding family, run by old Bill West Coast himself, a man who checked the quality of what we made every morning before he even had his coffee. "Numbers don't lie, Robert," he used to tell me. "People do. Your job is to make sure our numbers tell the truth." After Bill retired, his son sold the company to big investors. Things started to change, slowly at first. Small shortcuts, cheaper materials, waiting longer to fix machines, nothing big enough to cause alarm. Then came the big changes, a new name, a new plan. Sarah arrived from a large company known for fast, aggressive growth. Tom followed 6 months later, talking about making the company more modern. I tried to give them a chance until the first review meeting under the new leadership. "These payments to sellers don't match what we received," I pointed out. Sarah just smiled, a wide, fake smile. "We're changing suppliers. It will balance out." It didn't. But my follow-up emails asking about it were never answered. Then came the fancy trips for the bosses, the payments to consulting firms I couldn't find any public records for, expense reports with the same costs listed twice that somehow always got approved. I started taking notes, created a second set of books, the real ones. Saved copies of everything away from the office. Not because I planned to use it, just because Bill's voice kept playing in my head. Numbers don't lie. Meanwhile, the workplace changed. Younger employees with connections to Sarah or Tom got promoted quickly. Older staff who had been there a long time were moved to different jobs or encouraged to leave early. Dave from purchasing stopped by my office after he found strange differences in the bills. "Something's not right, Robert," he whispered. 2 weeks later, Dave was gone. "Performance issues," the company message said. My daughter, Lisa, noticed I was different. "You're working late every night, Dad. What's going on?" I couldn't bring myself to tell her. Lisa had just become a partner at her law firm. She didn't need my problems. "Just busy at work," I lied. But last month, when Tom changed the finance department, Putting his young nephew in charge of approving all the boss's spending before it got to me, I knew my time was limited. So I made copies, secured the proof, created a timeline of every questionable deal, every change in rules that removed the safety checks on the money. Not because I wanted revenge, but because someone needed to remember what Bill had taught us. Numbers don't lie. The reality of my situation hit me fully as I drove into my driveway that afternoon. For the first time in nearly 20 years, I had nowhere to be tomorrow morning. No reports to check, no end-of-month accounts to close. I sat in my car for a long time, just looking at my front door. My house felt different, somehow emptier, even though nothing had actually changed. I placed the cardboard box on the kitchen counter and poured myself a couple of fingers of the whiskey I kept for special moments. This qualified, I supposed, though not in the way I thought my work life would end. The phone rang. Lisa. Dad, Carol from accounting just called me. She said you were let go. What happened? I gave her the simple version. Changes happening, job eliminated, standard company talk. That's nonsense, my daughter said, her lawyer instincts kicking in. They can't do that after 20 years without a good reason. We should sue. No, I stopped her gently. No lawsuits. But, Dad. Trust me on this, Lisa. I took a slow sip of whiskey. Some battles aren't fought in court. After we hung up, I went to my home office and turned on the computer. The USB drive for my briefcase had everything, organized by date, type of problem, and the amount of money involved. 3 years of dishonest money handling, neatly listed with supporting proof. I opened a new document and started typing. Not an angry letter, not a threat, just a clear, factual summary of what I'd seen. Times, dates, amounts. The email addresses for the government's financial watchdogs and the state attorney's office were ready in the send to field. My finger paused over the send button. Was I really going to do this? These weren't just mistakes or simple errors. This was planned financial wrongdoing. People could lose their jobs, maybe face legal charges. The company Bill built could fall apart. I closed the laptop without sending anything. Instead, I found myself pulling out an old photo album. Pictures of Bill's retirement party, the old team, my late wife standing beside me at the company picnic, both of us younger, not knowing the sickness was already growing inside her. What would you do, Mary? I whispered to her photograph. I already knew the answer. Mary never put up with dishonesty. Do what's right, she would have said. Everything else doesn't matter. I didn't sleep well that night. By morning, something inside me had shifted. The confusion from the shock had gone, replaced by a cold, clear feeling. This wasn't about my job anymore. It wasn't even about me. It was about Bill's legacy, about the sellers who were being cheated, about the workers who would eventually pay the price for the boss's greed. I made coffee, straightened my tie out of 20 years of habit, and picked up the phone. Michael, it's Robert Davis. I need to talk to you about some money problems at West Coast Industries. Yes, it's a lot. Can we meet today? Michael Green had been my roommate in college. Now he was a federal prosecutor specializing in big money crimes. The first step had been taken. 3 days after meeting with Michael, I received a certified letter from West Coast's legal team. The severance package they were giving me required me to sign a confidentiality agreement that would stop me from talking about anything related to the company, past, present, or future. The amount of money was ridiculously small. 3 months' salary for 20 years of service. I called Lisa for legal advice. They're worried about something, she said after reading the document. This goes way beyond a normal agreement not to share secrets. What happens if I don't sign? They're threatening to fight your unemployment benefits and not pay you for vacation time you didn't use. Her voice became harder. Legally shaky, but they're betting you won't have the money to fight it. I thanked her and promised to think it over. What I didn't tell her was that I'd already decided. Later that afternoon, my doorbell rang. Sarah stood on my porch, wearing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Robert, she said warmly, as if we were old friends. May I come in? I wanted to personally check how you're doing. I let her into my living room but didn't offer her anything to drink. The severance papers, she said. placing a fresh copy on my coffee table. There was a misunderstanding. We can offer an additional 2 months' pay if you sign today. What's the hurry? I asked, keeping my voice calm. Her smile tightened. The company board is finishing next quarter's budget. We need to close out all pending financial matters. Like paying sellers correctly? The words slipped out before I could stop them. Something flickered in her eyes. I'm not sure what you mean. The Oakwood invoices, I said carefully. The ones that showed up in the system without proof of receiving the goods. Clerical errors, she replied smoothly. Already taken care of. And the consulting payments to Riverbend Solutions, the company that shares an address with your brother-in-law's home office? The temperature in the room seemed to drop significantly. Sarah's smile vanished completely. I'd be careful with accusations, Robert, especially ones you can't prove that could be considered damaging to someone's reputation. Her voice had lost all pretense of warmth. Did you take any company documents when you left? Because that would be theft. I kept copies of my own work, as allowed in the employee handbook, I replied truthfully. She stood up suddenly. I'll give you until tomorrow to reconsider the severance offer. After that, things might become complicated for your retirement planning. After she left, my phone lit up with a text from a number I didn't recognize. Back off if you know what's good for you. We know about the USB drive. That evening, I noticed a car parked across from my house. It was still there the next morning. By afternoon, my bank called. Someone had tried to get into my accounts using my social security number, but incorrect passwords. When I checked my email, dozens of emails confirming subscriptions flooded my inbox. Services I'd never signed up for, all requiring immediate payment. It was clear they were sending a message. They could make my life difficult. They could ruin my credit. They could watch my house. I called Michael again. They're pushing back, I told him. Hard. Expected, he replied calmly. But concerning. It suggests there's more than just messy bookkeeping. Forward me everything. The severance offer, the text, the unauthorized access attempts. Document the surveillance. What about my proof? Is it enough? His pause told me everything. It's strong, Robert, but companies like West Coast have lots of lawyers who will claim these are just isolated incidents or accounting mistakes. We need more. Someone on the inside. I hung up feeling more alone than ever. They were watching me, pressuring me, and I didn't have enough power to fight back. Not yet anyway. A week after Sarah's visit, I received a call from my old assistant, Maria. Her voice was quiet, nervous. Can we meet somewhere? Not in public. Not at your house. We arranged to meet at my brother's place, an hour outside of the city. He was in another state for the winter. The place would be empty. Maria arrived looking tired, constantly checking her rearview mirror as she pulled in. They're doing a full check of the books, she said without waiting once we were inside. But it's not a real audit. They're changing records, Robert. Making dates older, creating paper trails that never existed. How do you know this? They brought in consultants from Tom's old company. They don't know I can access the system logs. They still have me using your old login. She pulled out a USB drive. I've been documenting everything. What it was like before and after. I stared at the tiny device. You're risking your job. They're already planning to eliminate my position next month. Her laugh was bitter. Found that out when they accidentally copied me on the email about the changes. What Maria showed me went far beyond what I'd suspected. This wasn't just creative accounting or inflated executive perks. West Coast had been systematically overcharging government contracts, falsifying certification documents for parts that didn't meet safety standards, and recording phantom inventory to inflate company valuation. There's more, Maria said, pulling up an email chain. They're preparing to sell the manufacturing division to a private investment group. The employees won't know until it's done. The pension fund? Her expression confirmed my worst fears. They've been borrowing from it for over a year. If the sale goes through, there won't be enough to cover obligations. Hundreds of families' retirement plans, built over decades, all at risk. Who else knows about this? Just the executive team and now you. She hesitated. And someone else, I think. Kevin from Quality Control started asking questions last month. He disappeared a week before you did. Fired. That's the thing. There's no termination paperwork. His employee file shows he resigned, but his badge was never turned in and his desk was cleared out overnight. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. Have you heard from him? No. His phone goes straight to voicemail. On the drive home, I couldn't shake the sense that we were dealing with something darker than financial fraud. The surveillance car was gone from my street when I returned, but somehow that didn't reassure me. I called Kevin's number. Straight to voicemail, as Maria had said. I left a vague message about connecting about professional opportunities. Then I called Michael again. We need to move faster, I told him, explaining what Maria had shared. This changes things, he agreed. The pension fund angle elevates this significantly. I'll speak with my superiors tomorrow. But, Robert, he paused, be careful. If they're manipulating records on this scale, they're desperate. Desperate people make dangerous choices. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Kevin, about Bill Westcoast who trusted me to keep his company's finances honest, about the machine operators and warehouse staff who'd put in decades of service counting on pensions that were being drained away. At 2 a.m. my security system alerted me to movement in my backyard. By the time I reached the window whoever it was had vanished, but my home office window was cracked open just slightly, but enough to notice they weren't just watching anymore, they were sending another message: nowhere was safe. I didn't wait for them to make another move. By dawn, I was executing a plan I'd been formulating since Maria's revelations. First I moved all my evidence, both my documentation and Maria's, to 3 separate secure locations. One set went to Lisa with instructions to open only if something happened to me. Another went into a safety deposit box at a bank where Sarah's financial tentacles couldn't reach. The third I encrypted and sent to Michael with a detailed key delivered separately. Next I reached out to Dave from purchasing, who'd been pushed out months before me. We met at a diner 2 towns over. I've been waiting for this call, he said grimly after I explained the situation. I found the same discrepancies. Started asking questions. Next thing I know, I'm being escorted out for violating company policy. Did they threaten you after? Not directly, but my home was broken into a week later. Nothing valuable taken, just my laptop and some files. He leaned forward. I filed a police report, documented everything. Never thought it would be useful, but it establishes a pattern. I finished. Would you be willing to make a statement? He nodded without hesitation. Been feeling like a coward for staying quiet this long. By afternoon, I'd connected with 2 more former employees with similar stories. Each had pieces of the puzzle. Departments where numbers didn't add up, projects that disappeared from tracking systems, safety concerns that were buried. Michael called with news. The federal prosecutor's office was officially interested, but they needed more, particularly about the pension fund manipulation. We need current financial records, he said. Without them, West Coast's lawyers will claim the issues were fixed after you left. Maria was taking an enormous risk just talking to me. Asking her to extract more documents might put her in real danger. That's when my phone rang. An unknown number. Robert. The voice was barely recognizable. Kevin. I stepped outside the coffee shop where I'd been working, looking around instinctively. Where are you? Are you okay? Listen carefully. His words were rushed, frightened. The Springfield contract. Check the testing certification documents against the actual test results. They're putting defective parts in military vehicles. Kevin, where are they? Threatened my family. Said they'd make sure my kids. His voice broke. I'm leaving town, but someone needs to stop them before someone gets killed. The line went dead. Military contracts. Defective parts. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about lives. I called Michael immediately, relaying Kevin's information. His response was immediate. This changes everything. I'm bringing in the Department of Defense. Can you come to my office now? 3 hours later, I sat in a conference room with Michael and two stern-faced DOD investigators. I laid out everything: the financial fraud, the document manipulation, the pension fund depletion, and now the military contract corruption. "We'll need your full cooperation," one investigator said. "This investigation will become very visible, very quickly. I understand your safety might be compromised. We can arrange protection." I shook my head. "I have a better idea." The next morning I called Sarah directly. "I've been thinking about that severance package," I said, keeping my voice submissive, defeated. "I'd like to discuss terms." "Wise decision," she replied, poorly concealing her satisfaction. "Come to the office tomorrow 9 a.m. We'll finalize everything." "Actually," I countered, "I'd prefer somewhere more neutral. The Riverside Inn. They have private meeting rooms." She hesitated, then agreed. What she didn't know, the Riverside was already crawling with federal agents, rooms wired for recording and every entrance under surveillance. The trap was set, and Sarah was walking right into it. The Riverside Inn's Willow Room felt unnaturally quiet as Sarah reviewed the paperwork I'd brought. Her attorney sat beside her, occasionally whispering in her ear. "This all looks in order," she finally said, sliding the non-disclosure agreement across the table. "Just sign here and we can put this unfortunate situation behind us." I looked at the document, 12 pages of legal language designed to silence me forever. Beside it sat the severance check, 5 months' salary for 20 years. "Before I sign," I said carefully, "I'd like to clarify something. This agreement covers all company matters, correct? Including the pension fund irregularities and the Springfield military contract." The attorney stiffened. Sarah's smile faltered for just a moment. "All company matters," she confirmed smoothly. "Standard language." I nodded, reached for a pen, then paused. "One more question. Does this cover my obligation to report federal crimes I've witnessed?" "What are you implying?" The attorney leaned forward. "I'm not implying anything." I stood slowly. "I'm stating that I've already provided evidence of fraud, embezzlement, and criminal endangerment to federal authorities, including our conversation right now." On cue, the conference room door opened. Michael walked in, flanked by FBI agents and the DOD investigators. "Sarah Adams," one agent said, "we have a warrant to search all West Coast Industries facilities and seize financial records related to government contracts." Her face drained of color. As Michael placed a thick folder on the table, he said quietly, "This is just a fraction of what we have. The rest is being presented to a grand jury as we speak." Sarah lunged for her phone, but an agent gently intercepted her. "Tom Ellis and the CEO are being detained for questioning simultaneously," he explained, along with several board members. I didn't stay to watch them lead Sarah away. My part was done. 6 months after the arrests at the Riverside Inn, I stood in the old West Coast manufacturing facility watching workers on the assembly line. The machines hummed with the same rhythm they had for decades, but everything else had changed. The company had been placed in receivership during the investigation. When the dust settled, a coalition of employees had managed to purchase the manufacturing division with help from a state economic development fund. They'd renamed it West Coast Legacy Manufacturing. They'd asked me to help set up the new financial systems, proper ones with transparency and accountability built into every level. "All done for the day, Mr. Davis?" Mike, the security guard who'd once escorted me out, now nodded respectfully as I signed out at the front desk. "Just about," I replied, handing him back my visitor badge. Outside, Lisa waited in her car. "How's it looking in there?" she asked as I settled into the passenger seat. "Good, they've got a solid team. They'll be fine without me checking over their shoulders." I glanced back at the building. Bill would be proud. We drove in comfortable silence for a while. The news had covered the story extensively. Executives arrested, charges filed, plea deals negotiated. The pension funds had been partially recovered, not everything, but enough that most retirees wouldn't lose their homes. Sarah and Tom were awaiting trial. The CEO had turned state's evidence. The story had faded from headlines, replaced by newer scandals. "Any regrets?" Lisa asked as we pulled up to my house. I thought about the question carefully. "No," I finally answered. "I didn't do it for revenge. I did it because it was right. That evening I packed away my files on West Coast. The whole story was documented, preserved, but I no longer needed to carry it with me. Tomorrow I was starting as a part-time financial ethics consultant for a manufacturing association, helping other companies set up systems that made it harder for the Sarahs and Toms of the world to manipulate the books. Not a bad final chapter for a 60-year-old accountant who just wanted the numbers to tell the truth.